Let me close that out. Okay, I want to show you now inside of, let's go back into Maya. I'm going to take this exact same guy and I'm going to just scale it up in Y, 6 units. Because what I want you to see is how ZBrush is going to take the longest dimension. Okay, that's going to be the thing that sets it up and says, okay, this is what we scale it to. So I'm just going to come in, File, export that. Then I'm going to go back into ZBrush, go into my polymesh here, and I'm going to say import. I'm going to bring in the cube. There you go. So again, it's scaling itself to one ZBrush unit, which we have used the grid in Draw to set up so it's the exact same as Maya. But we know that inside Maya, it doesn't fit nicely like this. It should shoot way up and it should shoot way down. So the way we would see that is we would go into one of these guys and append it. And there you go. Does Ghost show that? No, it doesn't. So here we've got our large one. That's there. This top one is right here in the center. And then this guy is buried inside. We can't see him right now. Subtools sets it up. Let me do one more thing just to really harp this. Actually, I don't need to do that. I can show you this way. Let's go into this object. Notice that I'm going into the object, not into the one that has subtools. Let's see what its scale is. See how its scale is set to 3? So it has to apply a scale factor of 3 to fit that into one ZBrush unit. Okay, now let's just, for the Maya geeks, I'm going to give you a little trick to make this really hone in. Who remembers in Maya, what's the way to unify this? I've forgotten that setting. Freeze transformations. There we go. So now this is all set so that the scale is 1, yada, yada, yada. Let's put this to a scale factor of 3. Not obviously that way, but divide it by 3, so 0.33. So we have just now in Maya done exactly what ZBrush does. We have taken that normal object, which was kind of high up here. We have divided it by 3, that's our scale factor, and it has now shrunk itself down into one ZBrush unit. One ZBrush unit being basically 4 cubic centimeters. So if you get yourself in trouble, you now have a sense of the math to get yourself out of trouble. But now I'm going to introduce you to a serious trouble. Like something that just, you wish there was a better way to do it. Let's go into Lightbox, Tool, Demo Head. Okay, and then I'm going to select that top guy, yeah? And let's go into Export. Look at that scale factor. That scale factor is 1. So what does that mean to you? Well, what it means to me is that if that scale factor is 1, then why isn't that fitting inside of one ZBrush unit? Why is that larger than one ZBrush unit? Also, if I export this, so I'm going to come in here, export the demo soldier. And I'm going to come into Maya. If that is one ZBrush unit, then technically it should fit into this cube. Am I right? Technically. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to say import. That is not fitting into one ZBrush unit. Why would that not fit into one ZBrush unit? When everything I just told you said that this scale factor is a very important setting and that this is the way you connect to the real world. I'm going to look at one other setting. Maybe size has something to do with it. So why don't we set our size down lower? Let's just go 1. And now suddenly we're getting a little bit different. What happens if I set that to 1 and 1? That's odd. I'm not going to pretend to know what that is all about. But then we've got this thing in geometry, size, that's like, what? Where did that come from? Why you got to be like that? So ignore this for now, but what you want to be aware of is that in models from previous versions of ZBrush, okay, and that's specifically what this is almost always what this is about. In models from other versions of ZBrush, let's say if you've got ZBrush, something from ZBrush 2, Lord, if you've got something from ZBrush 2 and you're bringing that into ZBrush 4 or 6, you are going to have scale issues. Because the scale inside of ZBrush has actually been modified at least twice that I know of since then, both to accommodate floating point math and also to kind of pre-accommodate floating point math, to kind of make things a little bit better for larger objects, because we would be getting things from ILM where they've got like, let's say the Kraken from Pirates of the Caribbean, that big, huge beast. Well, they have to do this in a scene, so ILM doesn't care what Pixelogic's, scale issues are. They don't care what the software programmer's problems are. What they care about is their system. And so that Kraken in Pirates of the Caribbean, it has to be, real world, or it has to fit within the environment. And that scale is set by somebody, not the character or model supervisor. It's set for reasons other than ZBrush. All right. So real world units, the measurements at ILM, they have this whole system for doing that. They needed it to fit, and ZBrush 2 was running into problems with not being able to calculate larger objects that were calculated in like hundreds of feet in size. That was hard for ZBrush. So it got better, and then floating point math came about, and then now we're dealing in a different world. So the key point is scale, if you're dealing with older objects, is not always the right thing. If you are ever in doubt, I'm going to show you the foolproof way of knowing what the real scale factor is. Okay, this is a foolproof way, and anytime you have problems, this is always what I do. And it's real simple. Just export it. So we've already exported them, right? So let's just go in and import. All right. So now, funny enough, he has scaled himself down into one ZBrush unit. I am going to drag myself over to export, and that's my scale factor. 3.9558. So 3.9558. We look at this inside of Maya. Let's say, what's 3? Let's do our division. 1 divided by 3.9. We need a calculator. And this computer's acting a little slow. Any math whizzes before I get the iPhone out? 1 divided by 3.955, 0.25. So let's go back into Maya. So I'm just going to set scale factor to 0.25. There you go. That's essentially what ZBrush is doing, scaling it down so it fits within that box. That doesn't mean that it's going to stay that size because as soon as you export, it basically expands back into its size. All right. It's also offset it a little bit to get it to be positioned where it wants. These are, again, all undone. Okay, let me take a look at questions real quick. Let's start at the bottom. Kathleen is saying ZBrush isn't an end program, so it won't set the nits. Yes, another way to say it is it's Maya is a hub application, and everything else plugs into it. So everything has to. So it's set according to what works in Maya. I'll say it that way. I'm reading through questions. Okay. Mads, so if you do not use GoZ import as new subtool and then go to subtool, you are working on and append yes. So if you want to deal with correct proportions, then you just simply append them to get them to be in the correct relationship to each other. Okay, and really it's very, I'm doing this simple, guys, so that you see it's very simple. If you need objects to relate, you simply use the subtool system. If you have problems with the subtool system, then you need to check the export scale setting, and you also need to check the geometry and size. Okay, notice that now this is a totally different setting. If you run into like just unimaginable problems, you always export the OBJ and then import it again. And then you'll see if there's any long-term problems. This also affects displacement maps, export and import. If you divide the model and something goes weird with the division algorithm, undo it, export, re-import. Export and re-import is really one of those hidden secrets that can undo a lot of damage. Try that first whenever you run into significant issues. Okay, going through questions again. Kathleen is saying it's a good thing, you just have to be aware of it. I have a very large model and now I understand the problems. I can use the unify to bring it back into whatever, yeah. Exactly. Very large models, you just have problems in ZBrush. This is one of the things they have to deal with. Johannes, do things change it instead of Xform scaling? We move, scale, yada yada. If you move vertices, then yeah, things are going to change. Like if I was to grab that head and move it up, then that's gonna change. And the next time I import him, that scale factor is going to be different because he's going to try to shrink down into one unit. So let me show you. Export. I'm just going to call this one delete. Come in here, import, select delete. Okay, notice that delete then scaled down so he fits into one ZBrush unit. Even though this guy's here, he scaled down and his scale factor is now different, 6.1. So if you make any modifications, of course scale changes, all of that stuff scales, all of that changes. Okay, this is only on import and on export.